Hey everybody, Joe Morrison here from the 49th State Angel Fund. This is our first interview ever with independent game designer Jazon Burnell. He's an Alaskan, he's brilliant, he's a good friend, and he has created a game called Broken Space for the iPhone, which is really neat. And I think that what else is really neat is that I go back with Jazon 5 years to the very beginning of the 49th State Angel Fund. And you'll hear more about that in this interview. And you'll learn why it's kind of neat that in 2017 we're having this discussion about a video game, because we might have been talking about something similar in 2012. Some quick thoughts. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing 49SAF Pod? Well, this is the marketing for the 49th State Angel Fund. We talked, and a bunch of us thought that one of the more interesting things we could do was to talk about innovation in our community, people who are working to create value, and sort of the future of Alaska's economy through a homegrown entrepreneurship. And Jazon certainly meets that criteria. He's been self-employed for most of his career. He's still young. And, you know, he just shipped a video game that he developed basically by himself. Super neat, super interesting. We will be putting these out twice a month. I'm shooting for the 1st and the 15th. And I realize that I'm not talking too much about the 49th State Angel Fund in this very first episode. We might talk not just about what's happening in Anchorage, but in other parts of our state and innovative communities like Juneau and Fairbanks, where people are doing interesting things. And of course, we're going to look for award-winning startups that are coming out of Alaska. And there are more of them than you could think, which is kind of neat. But anyway, enough about this, enough about the intro. Let's get to our interview with Jazon Burnell, who just built a new video game called Broken Space. Let's listen. Pretty low tech, huh?
I mean, it works.
Are you intimidated by the fact that a Microsoft device is sitting on my desk? How does that make you feel?
Oh, fine. Actually, our main target device for the educational projects I'm working on are Surface tablets. I know a lot about that.
Okay.
More than I care to know about that Surface tablet.
I really love it. I'm pretty happy to have the Surface. I feel like it's the dawn of a different era here at the municipality. It's kind of cool.
Right on.
So we're sitting here with Jazon Burnell, who is an independent game developer. I'm Joe Morrison. This is the 49SAF Pod. This is the very first one we're ever doing. We haven't done this before. Jazon, the question we start off with everybody is, what's your favorite business?
SpaceX.
Why?
Yeah, I am a bit of a space geek, and I really like, I just find the company very interesting. I think they're doing really cool stuff. They're definitely pushing engineering in really interesting ways. Their ability to land a reusable rocket is one amazing technical challenge that they've succeeded on multiple times. They've also announced their plans to colonize Mars, which are absurdly ambitious, and his timeline's probably not the most realistic in the world, but it's still, even if he does it in twice the timeline, it's still incredibly impressive. Also, stuff he's doing at Tesla is also very awesome. So, yeah, I enjoy seeing what the company does and what they're working on.
Okay, SpaceX it is. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right, so why don't you tell people how we met? And we've known each other for, I think, 4 years at this point, would be my guess. So why don't you talk about how we know each other, and that'll take us into your interesting world of game development.
Yeah, it'd be at least 4 years. I think it'd be more like 5 or 6. I think we've run into each other in the tech and entrepreneur circles quite a bit, but then it was the first 49th State Angel funding that I was a part of, or pursued for a certain period of time, where we first started working together more consistently.
Well, what was it like your first time at the 49SAF? I can't talk about it hilariously, but you can. So you can talk about your first time at the 49SAF. I can disclose no such thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting. This was my first time ever doing anything related to venture capital funding whatsoever. And so it was interesting digging into that world, understanding how all that works, especially how a lot of the contracts and how the math of, the dilution and shares and all that kind of works together. So that part was interesting. Yeah, it's I think it's a good experience overall.
What was good? What was bad?
The matching funds didn't work out. And so we just didn't pursue it past a certain point.
So it's interesting that we're talking about this. There's actually some numbers that I've got. We had, I think, over 40 direct applicants, and the committee recommended between 8 and 9 businesses for equity funding, and only one made it through due diligence, and a lot of that was being able to raise private capital. So I think a lot of that was, what was Anchorage like back in 2012 when we were trying to do this. There weren't seed funds investing. There wasn't really, there had been education about angel investing and venture capital, little v, little c, but there wasn't just a lot of it happening here. Mm-hmm. So to go out and to try and find matching capital for, I don't know, at least tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Pretty hard to do, right?
Indeed.
Pretty hard to do in 2012. Do you think things have changed at all or not really? Or are you not in this world anymore?
Yeah, I'm not in the world thick enough to be able to answer that question very accurately, I think. I'm hopeful it's changed at least a little bit, but I do not know for certain. It seems like the incubator spaces they've changed a fair bit, so I'm hopeful they've gotten better. Obviously, the Launch Alaska stuff is pretty cool. Hopefully that helps that quite a bit.
If you had one piece of advice, and we're going to get into game development and your video game, and that's why we've got you on the podcast. There's, all of 2 video game developers maybe in the state. I could be wrong. There could be some hiding under couch cushions somewhere.
Right. Probably are. I think at least 2. I think there might be more.
Okay, so there's more than 2, but you're an independent video game designer, and you've also worked on larger video games as part of a team. I think an interesting question that I've got for you is, what's your advice to grow this space in Alaska? Whether it's the video game space or the tech space, what would be the one thing you think we could do better in terms of supporting and growing that community?
Yeah, so I'm not sure this is a direct answer to that question, but I do think a lot of people overestimate the difficulty in being kind of self-employed / a contractor. And I think that is a fairly critical element of getting people more capable and interested in being kind of having that talent. I think the technical talent exists. It's just most of them are working at 9-to-5 jobs. And I think a lot of people doing that probably could do game development, but aren't. And so I think maybe having more support for that sort of community, but that's kind of a broad goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perhaps. What do you think that support or knowledge would look like? Gotcha.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm like, to be honest, I don't have a good answer for the initial question. I was just trying to think of, like, if you're trying to grow it from a bit of a grassroots perspective, there are a lot of people who I think want to do game development who aren't. And so it'd be kind of cool to be able to grow that, but I don't have a good idea how. So I think you need that sort of talent to exist first. And from the things that I see people do in their spare time, I think the talent and interest is there. I don't know what you would do to get them to be able to transition from, the stable employment, which, everybody needs, to the slightly more risky, but still very, very doable kind of contracting basis where you can get just more interesting game development.
All right, Jazon. So for the audience, please tell us, what is Broken Space?
Right, so Broken Space is a block-breaking game or / Arkanoid style game. So a traditional game in this medium, you'd have a paddle, you'd have a ball bouncing around, breaking blocks, and you try to avoid letting the ball go past you. Broken Space takes that concept to a much more visual extreme. And so you have an actual spaceship. It's fully 3D. You're bouncing around spheres around the world. There's some really enhanced, I think very visually neat graphics where you have kind of waves and everything that occur based on where the ball bounces and lots of physics and all sorts of cool stuff going on. And so you start off as a spaceship, you're traveling through space, you find out you got too close to a wormhole in your home galaxy and got launched across the universe to another galaxy and trying to find your way home. So there's a story going on in the background there. And there's lots of challenges and cool stuff that you can upgrade and different weapons and all that sort of stuff.
And I should say a couple things. One is thanks for the testing credit. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Did anybody else get through the final level?
You know, yes, yep.
Okay.
At least one person did.
All right. So at least two of us got through the final level. I did, and I was amazed. I did because it was really, really hard.
Yep, I like hard games. I like games that, I mean, it starts off pretty easy. The first location's, I think, relatively easy, and they keep easy, but there's 10 total locations in the game. They slowly get more and more difficult. And like some of the best boss fights I've ever played in my life have been where you're just like, you almost want to throw down the controller. It's so difficult, but you keep playing it because it's fun over and over again until you finally beat it. It's a great sense of accomplishment. So the final boss in this game is definitely to that effect.
And I should say, we know each other, as we discussed, because back in 2012, we were looking at doing a deal together, but Broken Space has nothing to do with the 49 SAF. The only reason we're talking is, well, you're one of Alaska's only independent game developers that has shipped a game on iOS recently. And it's important to talk about this. This is innovation in our community and entrepreneurship and doing new things. So that's why we've got you on 49 SAF Pod. And I really enjoyed the game. It was a lot of fun. Awfully hard though. That last piece. I'm glad I didn't throw down my $400 iPhone.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad you didn't either. There is a certain. I always try to keep in mind gameplay comes first over kind of business design, but there is a business aspect to making something slightly more on the challenging side in that people keep playing it. So once you beat the final boss, you're probably not going to play the game again. At the point you complete the game. And so, especially in a free-to-play model, it's advantageous to have something at least challenging enough to where you play it multiple times because you're more likely to be shown ads or earn credits or whatever. It's applicable to the business model.
I know that you had been thinking about this for quite some time, and maybe even as far back as 2013, 2014, really. Take us through like how you started with Broken Space, how you came up with the initial idea, and how much, give us the origin story of Broken Space.
Yeah, so the very first game I ever built that was widely played was a game originally called Super Pong. I developed it prior to the App Store existing, prior to anybody knowing what mobile apps are.
What year are we in?
Late 07, early 08. And so I was working, you basically had to be part of the jailbreak community. People were hacking their iPhones to be able to do interesting and unapproved things with them. And so I was building a game, that game Super Pong, and I released it to the jailbreak community. And, it had like 1 million downloads or something, right? Free app, so it didn't make any money, but there was a lot of interest at the time prior to the App Store.
You had 1 million downloads?
Yeah.
Well, sure you did. Okay.
Because, I mean, there were hardly any games. There were basically very few games on the App Store at the time. So, like, I've always liked block breaking games. I think it's a fun premise. It's quick gameplay. It's action-based. So I did that. Once the App Store came out, I built successors to it. Eventually became called Super Ball 1, 2, and 3. And so I kind of had a lot of ideas and gameplay mechanics and stuff that I liked. And so that kind of has been on the App Store for quite a while now. And then, so I decided it'd be cool to try and take that concept and take something that would be very visually impressive, like really tweak and could kind of keep that within scope. Because like if you're trying to build like a first-person shooter, for example, you're trying to optimize a game like that to be visually impressive is difficult because the sheer number of things going on, the world that's being rendered, it's a lot of stuff. And so I thought if I could I hadn't seen anybody take a block breaking game and try and make it as visually impressive as you can, because you can control the scope of the graphics a little bit more precisely. And so I thought you could do more impressive graphics, which I think in the end result I succeeded with.
Okay, so give us a timeline. How long did it take you to get the resources together for Broken Space, and how long did it take you to code it and test it and do all the things you need to do to develop this game and put it out to the public? Because it came out basically January 2017, so last month.
Yeah.
Okay, so give us more of the timeline.
I kind of committed to it, I think somewhere like around 4 years ago or whatever. And then it's been a side project for a very long time now. For a very long time, 4 years.
So it took you 4 years to build Broken Space.
In my spare time, yeah. It's not like it's a full...
Because you've got to live and eat and, do work.
Yeah, it is preferable. But I will say the one part that was a bit challenging was it's entirely a solo project. And so working on a solo project for that long, motivation becomes a bit of an issue because you're not really bouncing ideas. Like, I let people play the game and let people kind of experiment with prototypes and give me some feedback. But like in terms of that daily motivation and like encouragement, that's easier to, I think, to foster with a team. And so trying to like keep myself motivated to keep working on it, I think it's definitely challenging that long.
Do you feel like, how long would it have taken you if you had a team and say your team got together once or twice a week to work on Broken Space? How do you feel like that might have been different?
Yeah, I mean, I presume it would have been faster. I mean, I'm sure like having a full-time second coder would have cut down at least a year or two, I would think, at least a year off the development time.
What would you do differently?
I really don't know. I mean, the premise of what I built was trying to, like, if I built the coolest thing I could think of, how would that? So I'm tempted to say I wish I could have I pulled back on the features a little bit. There's a lot of features in there, which I think are really cool that I don't know it necessarily needed to be kind of a fun game experience. At the same time, I really wanted to build something that had all these features, that felt like a really full polished game. Because it has like a galaxy map, and it has all these really cool transitions to go from one place to another, and it has upgrade systems, and it has a lot of these cool mechanics that I think make it feel like much more than just a very simple casual game. But in hindsight, I probably could have gotten away with making it more casual and having less of these more advanced features, which did prove to be more time consuming than I thought they would be, especially managing the galaxy map and all sorts of things.
So you come at this from the perspective of debatably either a game developer or a technologist, right? And there's, I guess, a question that I have for you is, how are you going to market this thing? What's your marketing strategy?
Well, so to be honest, my goal initially was to try and get the game featured by Apple. And I thought I had decent, by no means a guaranteed chance at that, but I thought I had a worth pursuing chance at that.
Right, because it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous game.
Yep, and I did all the things that increase your chances of features. So I integrated the latest iOS 10 features, including ones called Replay Live, which lets you broadcast the game live to a whole bunch of people. And just, Game Center and achievements and leaderboards, like all 9 yards of all the things that you're supposed to feature. And I have some contacts in Apple, and you put it all together. I was thinking there's a good chance of it getting featured. So that hasn't happened yet. That was plan A, which I knew from the get-go that was by no means guaranteed. But that was plan A. Plan B, which I've started working on slowly, because again, it's all a spare time project, would be to go towards a free-to-play model and probably release on Android as well as iOS. And so that's in progress. Hopefully get that done maybe next month or so. And then for marketing, at least the kind of the grassroots approach, which is to do like YouTube and submit to the review sites and all that. I might drop some money into an actual marketing company to do some basic stuff too. I really haven't decided since I'm not quite to that point yet.
Okay. What's your current business model? You're thinking about going free to play?
Right. Currently paid game. It's just paid straight. I think it's $2 right now.
$2? Mm-hmm. Okay. And tell us how have the downloads been? Do you have a number for us?
I haven't looked recently. It has not made much money yet.
Right.
I think it has a good chance of doing better as a free-to-play game. Because again, the paid strategy really is dependent on Apple featuring it. Okay. And they have not yet. Therefore, free-to-play is the way to go. Because it's a marketing issue. If Apple features it, you have a massive marketing potential right there. That's huge because there's, I don't know, I think it's millions of people look at that app store on a pretty regular basis. Without that, you're going to have a hard time finding people willing to pay money up front for a game in the current market because free games are so much more common. Once a game is free to play, just like even just uninteresting apps, there's just people are willing to download anything if it's free, it kind of seems like. And so it's makes things a lot easier to get people started in the game initially.
Okay. What do you think the future of mobile gaming is going to be like? What do you think the evolution will be in 2018 for mobile games?
I don't see it being much different than it is now, but to say it will be stagnant and stay exactly the same probably seems kind of unlikely. But at the same time, we've already gotten to a point where the big players are making, over $1 billion annually and control the top spots. Free to play seems to be dominating the revenue as a whole. The amount of submissions are massive now. I think there's 900 apps per day are being submitted to the App Store. So it's a pretty extreme market. That's definitely changed in the last 4 years since I started the project. And so in a way, it's hard to imagine, especially from the indie developer perspective, it's hard to imagine it getting worse than it currently is.
Well, thanks for being on 49SAF Pod. I guess a final thoughts or final takeaways from you, Jazon, in this space, or anything related to Anchorage, game development, entrepreneurship, the 49SAF. Any final words from you to us?
I would say my future plans. So where I have been most successful is I had a decent amount of success when the App Store very first came out, when it was a new market and all that. And I think for indie game developers, I think it's worth pursuing new markets because I think there's a lot more excitement and interest, and the marketing is easier and competition is a little easier. So you can't make $1 billion in a new market, but as long as you're not investing millions of dollars into game development, as long as your investment's more in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think there's a potential to get to make money in new markets. And so VR is what I'm currently going to start looking into a little bit. Again, you can't make massive amounts of money, but I think as an indie developer, there's a lot of potential. There's definitely a lot of people who are making millions of dollars, it looks like, in the VR space. Still competitive, still difficult, but...
Blue Ocean, right?
Blue Ocean?
Blue Ocean. Go find where the ships aren't on the ocean and go sail your boat there, and then you have the ocean to yourself versus having a red ocean where there are a lot of ships and you're competing really intently for maybe a big market, but there's just so much competition it's hard to stand out.
Right. I mean, you're on an ocean where there actually is ocean to see compared to the App Store where you're just, it's boat next to boat next to boat next to boat. There is no ocean to be visible. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again. Really appreciate it, Jazon, and thanks for as far back as 2012, pursuing financing with the 49th State Angel Fund. I appreciate it. We had fun. We've had a great 5+ years of knowing each other and watching each other do interesting things in this space. I will put a link to Broken Space, which is an amazing block-breaking game, a little bit like Arkanoid for the iOS age. I'll put it in the show notes. And people can find it there. Alaskans by Alaskan, and Jazon Burnell's quite the Alaskan, right?
Right.
All right, so that's it. 49SAF Pod signing off from the 8th floor of City Hall, where every now and then, to many people's dismay, the music of Justin Bieber seeps out of my office. Take care. We'll see you soon.